Hey loves, welcome back to the channel. Today in this video we are going to be making a simple tutorial on how to make a halter neck top with lacing at the back. So if you're interested in learning how to make this and how to ensure that it covers your boobs, keep on watching and let's get started. So for this tutorial, I'm making use of this little piece of fabric that I patched together, and also we'll be making use of our bias tape, and also I have this red lining to line it at the back. So those are basically the materials you'll be needing to make this top. So we're going to go ahead now and draft the pattern. So guys, to draft out this pattern, I have my pattern paper right here. So I'm going to first of all draw a straight line across to serve as our shoulder line, and we're going to go ahead and take every other measurement from this line. So from this line, I'm going to go down to my bust point, which is 10 inches, and I'll mark that line across. This is the bust line, and then from the bust line, I'm going to go up by 2 inches to get my chest line. So this is the chest line. Now from the top line again, from the shoulder line, I'm going down to the length I want this top to be. I initially marked 15 but changed my mind and decided to use 16 inches. So I also marked that across. That is the hemline. So now from this shoulder line, I'm marking how wide I want my neckline to be. So I went in by 3 inches and I'm coming down by 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to use my curved rule to make a round neckline. So now coming down to this chest line, you're going to divide your bust measurement by 4 and make a point there. Now you will connect that new point all the way to the neckline. So that's basically what is going to give you that halter effect. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going ahead to do is on the bust line, I'm marking my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, so that we'll be able to get our darts. So I just marked it on the bust line and on the hemline, and I connected the both of them. Now from the bust line, I came down by 1 inch, and on the hemline, I'm going to go out by 1/2 inch from this line I made earlier, and I'll just connect it to this point I had above. So now I don't want this top to just be like a front thing. I want it to extend to the back a little bit, at least a little bit to the back. So from this bust line here, I'm going out by 2.5 inches here. So this 2.5 inches is for the back. Now on this waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4, and I'm marking my dart. So I'm adding 1 inch dart to that, and that gave me 7 inches. Now the same 2.5 inches that I added to this top, I'll add it to this side as well. So I'm going ahead now to join the points together. So this is basically all for this tutorial. So this part here is going to be where the back starts from. So let me just make a mark to differentiate it. So this part is the front and the other side is the back. So we just go ahead now and cut it out. So guys, I decided to have a bust dart to give it like a kind of bustier effect. So from this point where the front ended here, I'm going up by 3.5 inches, which is half of my nipple to nipple measurement as well. So I'm going to slant it. I'm connecting it to the bust point, so I'm making a slant like that, as you can see, and I'm going in and out of both sides with 1/2 inch, just like I would normally do. So I just connected this line to get to the chest line, and I'm just tracing my dart to meet that point. So we're going to have like a kind of dart here and another one under to just give it that kind of bustier effect. So now I went ahead to use this to cut out on my actual fabric. So I gave stitching allowance all the way around except the neckline. So basically this is all. I went ahead to also use the same pattern to cut out on my lining piece. So the next thing I'm doing right now is just arranging this pattern paper back on it, and I'm trying to duplicate my dart area on the actual fabric itself. If you You can do this by making notches. Now while making this video, I realized I should have simply just made notches and just take the measurements in between, but I'm marking it out. So I'm just marking it out and making the lines on the actual fabric so that it will be easy for me to stitch down on the sewing machine. So now I'm just going ahead to stitch my dart here on this side. I'll do it for both sides, and I'll do the same thing for the other part as well. And I'll also repeat it for the lining. So guys, I've stitched down the dart areas and it's looking very pretty. You can see like I have a kind of bustier effect. You can see that there's this space in here. It's looking like there's a bustier somewhere for my boobs to sit, which is absolutely nice. So it's showing better on this lining piece. So you can see how nicely it is looking after I stitched down the darts on both sides. So another thing I went ahead to do after stitching this was to cut out this tiny piece of bias tape to use for my loop. So as you can see, I've already folded the bias, so that's going to be the thing that will serve as my loop for the lacing at the back. So for the length of the loop, I'm cutting 1.5 inches. So I went ahead to cut out this 1.5 inches and I had 5 for both sides. So now we're going to go ahead and pin it to the sides before we stitch the lining and the actual fabric together. So I'm giving each loop a space. So I've decided to give each loop about 2 inches difference. So there'll be one at the top, one here. Then I just went ahead to mark 2 inches marks on both sides. Guys, I'm folding my loop into 2 like this. So as you can see, I folded this into 2 and I'm placing the loop inside like this, ensuring that the 2 outer parts of the loop is going towards the outside. I don't know if you guys understand. So I tried to pin this down, but for some reason, I don't know why, it didn't really work. So I decided to pin it towards the actual fabric alone. So as you can see, I'm just trying to just pin it on the actual fabric alone, so it's still on the same point. And I went ahead to do the same thing for the other piece as well. I just went ahead to get the point on the actual fabric and I'm just going ahead to pin it down. So guys, for some reason pinning this down was just really hard for me, so I decided to just leave the pins and decided that when I'm stitching it down, I'll be placing the loop as I sew. So when I get to each point, I'll just go ahead and stitch the loop in. So I'm going over to the sewing machine now. From the neckline, I'm going to stitch it down, stitch the side, stitch the under, stitch it here. The only place I will not sew is this neckline here. So this is what I mean. I've gone ahead to stitch it down, and when I was stitching the sides, I was adding the loop like I said I was going to go ahead and do. So I'll just make a notch at this point here, and at this point I'll go ahead and turn this to the right side. So guys, this is what it looks like, and you can see the loops are really looking nice on the side. I actually hope that you understand that loop part I was trying to explain. I went ahead to iron it out, and you can see this bustier part. This is the part that I'm really very excited about. These double darts just gave it a really nice shape up here. So you can see the neckline is yet to be sealed up, so that's the part we're going to work on now. So I'm folding this top into 2 equal halves and I'm marking the middle of the neckline, as you can see. And I'm also going to fold my bias into 2. Ensure that you have a very long bias that will be able to give you all the lacing at the back. So I marked the middle of the bias as well. So from the back, I'm going to place the bias, the middle of the bias and the middle of the top together like this. Now let's turn it to the back. So I'm just pinning this bias around this neckline like this. So basically we are going to stitch it around the neckline like this. So I'll go over to the sewing machine and stitch this bias around the neckline. So guys, after I was done stitching it around the neckline, this is what it looks like. I always prefer to stitch it from the back so that from the front I can control how nicely it looks. So yeah, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is to use the remaining part of the bias to just finish up this neckline, and you can see it's going to look really nice. But we're going to start our stitching from the end of the bias. So I'll start folding the bias from the end, Then when it gets to this part where the actual neckline is, I'll just use it to finish up the neckline here, and I will do it all the way to the other end. So this is basically all for this top. I've finished up the neckline with the bias tape, so it's going to also serve as our loop for the back. So I'll just cross the first lacing I'll do. So I'll cross it like this and use the other one to cross as well, like this, and I'll just go ahead and continue with the lacing like that. So guys, this is basically all for this tutorial, and this is how cute my top came out. And you can see that it's covering my boobs and the back is looking all nice and pretty. Thank you so much for watching. If you're here to subscribe, please hit on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. I will see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.